here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's April 17th here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Kim Xiang.
Happy Monday, yeah.
Happy Monday! And Jessica Dainong.
Happy Monday! I wanted to top that.
I love this energy. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. And moving on, we're going to start with our news feed. A news feed which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. We start with a news item from Japan. Japanese police have arrested 24-year-old Ryuji Kimura, who allegedly threw a bomb towards Prime Minister Fumio Kishida on Saturday. Kishida was visiting Sakazaki Port in Wakayama Prefecture to make a campaign speech for the upcoming by-election this month. Hundreds had gathered to hear him talk, but fortunately no one was hurt from the explosion. And the attack comes less than a year since former Prime Minister Abe Shinzo was shot and killed during an election campaign last July. Moving on, Sunday marked the 9th anniversary of South Korea's biggest maritime disaster, the Seoul ferry sinking. Memorial services and events were held nationwide. Back on April 16, 2014, a ship carrying 476 passengers from Incheon to Jeju sank. A total of 304 passengers and crew members died. Among them, 254 were students and teachers from Danwon High School going on a field trip. And only a week has passed since Paeseunga, a 9-year-old girl, was killed on the sidewalk of a school zone by a drunk driver. But we've still seen many accidents from drivers under the influence. Just on Saturday night, a driver in his late 20s was drunk to the point that his license had to be canceled. His car hit a ramp on one of the busiest expressways in Seoul, Gangbyeon Expressway, and flipped over. Fortunately, no one was injured, but the car blocked other car lanes, causing major traffic congestion. Now we're going to look a bit deeper into the third news item, DUI, driving under the influence. Now, after one elementary school student died and 3 were severely injured in broad daylight from a reckless drunk driver, demands for stricter penalties and regulation on DUI have been growing. And that's why police have laid out plans to strengthen random breath tests until the end of next month, regardless of the time of day or location. And last Friday, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., police carried out 431 random breath tests. More than 1 out of the 10 drivers tested were over the alcohol limit during the short span time. And the public is also demanding that the penalties for drunk drivers should be strengthened. Now, a proposed legislation aims to reveal the name, age, and face of any driver who has driven under the influence at least 2 times in 10 years or killed someone through drunk driving. Taiwan has actually been doing this since last March. So here in the studio, Cheska, what do you think? Do any other countries have strong penalties against driving under the influence? And what do you think about the penalties Korea is slapping onto offenders currently?
It always causes so much sadness when I hear news about DUI, because Korea has been known to have very lenient penalties on DUI. So just to give you an example, if your BAC is over 0.03%, you get penalized depending on the severity.
Right.
Now in Korea, if you injure a person with a car, it's only 2 years of a license revoke. However, if you actually cause the death of a person, it is only 5 years. Now, there have been a public outrage, as we saw in the newsfeed, and a demand for a more strict law, because assailants actually get away with very lenient penalties, and they actually cause multiple subsequent accidents afterwards. So I really think there should be a reconstruction on the law, and it demands a lot from the public as well.
Yeah, can't believe it's only 5 years for manslaughter.
And sometimes you get even less than 5 years.
But you do get criminal charges on top of your license being revoked.
You do, but just the matter of the years is so low that people actually do have recurring accidents that happen.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's why a call for stricter laws have been demanded nationwide. In the United States, there's a so-called Bentley law, which requires drunk drivers who kill a parent to pay child support until the child is 18. And Tennessee was the first state to implement it, and related laws were passed in 20 other states. Here in Korea, lawmakers have proposed laws like this as well. Just last month, 3 similar ones were motioned in the National Assembly. So, Xiong, what do you think about this type of proposal? And as you mentioned, the penalties right now don't seem to be as grave compared to the consequences. So any other ideas you would like to give?
Yeah, I mean, like following some of the other examples other countries are doing, you do get things like a mandatory breath alcohol ignition interlock device, commonly called IID device or BAIID. You might have heard about it. So the driver who's a repeated offender driving under influence have to have a machine, a breathalyzer attached to his car, which you got to test yourself before the ignition comes on.
Oh, that's actually really
So it's quite a clever way to have a device that prevents any sort of drunk driving or, driving under influence from the get-go. And I think countries like Australia, Belgium, Canada, Finland, France, and the US are doing it already. There has been debate in Korea about enforcing these IIDs. But the problem is that the government thinks, all these other countries, the offenders pay for these machines. But in Korea, there's debate whether the government should pay for it or not, and which, in my opinion, is a bit,
ludicrous,
a bit ridiculous, to be honest. I think it should be the offenders who pay for these devices as well.
And I agree, we definitely need to see stronger regulation and penalties against drunk driving, especially since the most serious part of this issue is that it's not a one-time thing. Drivers caught are usually found to have driven under influence countless times. Now, moving on to today's discussion topic, we're going to be talking about health issues, specifically one that's causing concern among more people in their 20s and 30s. It's diabetes. Take a look at the screen to find out more. Is there a zero-sugar version of this? This is a common question millennials and Gen Z have been asking at restaurants and cafes before ordering a sweet drink. South Korea's leading beverage company, Lotte Chilsung, saw its sales of sugar-free soft drinks increase by 111% in 2022. Experts analyze this to be because more young people are concerned about their figure. But it's also because of health drawbacks like diabetes. The Korean Diabetes Association said the proportion of Koreans with diabetes has been picking up pace. Back in 2012, 1 out of 10 Koreans had it. But in 2020, this figure went up to 16.7%. What experts found more alarming was that 3 out of 10 people in their 30s had prediabetes, meaning their blood sugar level is higher than usual, but not to the point where it can be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Today, NewsGen aims to answer 3 questions. 1. How big of a health concern is diabetes to those in their 20s and 30s? 2. Why are we seeing more young people suffer from this health condition? 3. How are businesses trying to adapt to young people's growing awareness about their health? How big has the zero sugar market become here in Korea? So let's talk health issues today. We're going to be talking about specifically what's concerning millennials and Gen Z in Korea. It's diabetes. So Xiong, walk us through just how much of a health concern diabetes is among Koreans in their 20s and 30s.
Yes, as many of us know, there are 2 types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. So type 1 is less common, the cause for which is often thought to be genetic or environmental factors, as it is a malfunction of your immune system. Type 2 is more common. It can also be hereditary, but being overweight, obese, or physically inactive are more defining factors. In Korea, diabetic patients have increased in number over the years, especially for the age group of 20s and 30s. Let's have a look at the data provided by the Korean National Health Insurance Service. For diabetics in their 20s, there has been a total of 57.2% increase between the period of 2017 to 2022, from around 24,000 to 38,000 patients. This is an annual increase of 12% during the 5-year period. For diabetics in their 30s, there has been a total of 25.7% increase between the period of 2017 to 2022, from 92,000 to 116,000 patients. This is an annual increase of 5.9% during the 5-year period as well. So there has been quite a bit of increase of diabetes patients in South Korea, especially in the younger generation.
Right, and I'm in my 20s myself, and I was quite alarmed to see that the annual increase for this period, for this generation, was 12%.
I just saw,
Only in the span of 5 years. That's quite alarming. Then why do you guys think that we're seeing more diabetics in their 20s and 30s? And do you guys have a sweet tooth?
I think you already answered the question yourself. I definitely...
We all know.
You guys all know. I always carry packets of chocolate in my bag. And when you guys have low sugar, I'm the one that tossing chocolates.
Chalky time.
Exactly.
Your breakfast is cakes and coffee.
Right.
Basically,
That's the lethal combo. That's my go-to combination for energy spike.
Double icing.
Ooh.
Oh, really? That was a joke.
But I think in our generation, we definitely consider sweets as not only a self-reward, but also an entertainment. And Korea traditionally has never had like an overly sweetened food.
Right.
If you look at our sweet selection, it's very savory, not so much
true,
sweet.
yes.
But I think there has been a growing influence of Western culture and this idea of sharing on social media these
Right.
cafes, bakeries, and desserts that have really propelled, as we saw in the stats, younger generation to want to consume more sweets.
I can completely relate to what you said, self-rewarding. You know, after hard days of work, you just want to have a chocolate cake, upload it onto your Instagram and social media with a
You
lot
just
of...
want that little sweetness,
You
right?
do.
And
It gives you a kick of the day.
You big fan of pretty desserts
Yes,
as well?
I'm a huge
Yeah.
fan.
She's a huge fan.
I'm a huge fan of cute, sweet desserts. But what about you, Xion? Do you have a sweet tooth? And why do you think we're seeing more diabetics in their 20s and 30s?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just like as Cheska said, I think it's more of a recent phenomena, Korean foods getting a bit sweeter. And traditionally, a lot of Korean foods were sweetened with fruits and, you know, like
Yeah.
pears and apples and things like
Right.
that, which is quite healthy for you. But you do see an increase of sugar intake and, you know, soft drinks are becoming more has been common as well.
Right.
And, you know, I do enjoy sweetened foods, sweet foods, but not overly sweetened ones. And I hate when some of the Korean restaurants do a savory dish quite sweet. And
Like-
like even some pastas are sweet, even some, you know, you get these sweet potatoes, pizzas.
I love them too.
I'm not so
He
sure
seems
about
like, I'm
those.
not in this
Pizzas should be,
Your
you know,
facial expression
tomato
is priceless.
paste or cheese. Anyways, but to be honest, I mean, sugar doesn't actually directly cause type 2 diabetes, as the British Diabetic Association mentioned, and you're more likely to get it if you're overweight. So, I mean, the Korean population is not particularly known to be obese, as you know. A lot of us are quite superficial society. Everybody wants to lose weight.
Right.
But it does have a considerable obese percentage at 36.3% in 2019.
Right.
So, I mean, lack of exercise, excessive food consumption, and change of diet, I think, is what might have caused the rise in numbers of diabetics in their early 20s and 30s.
And it's actually one of the leading causes of deaths here in the country. And that's why a lot of Koreans find this to be a very serious and grave matter. Why do you think this is the case, though? Why are a lot of Koreans dying from this disease?
So based on what the experts have said, in recent years, stress, much like depression or everything that happens in our generation, have definitely caused a rise in diabetics, but also COVID because of increase in fast food delivery. There was so-called COVID-15, much like the freshman 15 pounds that you gained during COVID.
Right.
But on a more biological level, Koreans have a smaller pancreas compared to
do they?
Yeah, that are Westerners, which actually has weaker insulin secretion, which actually lowers the blood sugar. So that also promotes more increase in diabetics. However, 4 out of 10 adults have diabetes, but are not even aware of it at the moment because we're so young. We don't even, have the idea to go to a hospital and get a checkup.
Yeah,
Right, we
you wouldn't
don't-
think you'd have it.
I know, right?
Don't look like it. Yeah.
Right, but I don't know how this connects, but a lot of people seem to be looking for zero sugar options
Oh,
too. It's not
absolutely.
necessarily because they're too concerned about diabetes per se, but they know that too much sugar in your system isn't that good. So Cheska, why don't you explain to us how big this market has become?
Absolutely. I think it's the idea of you want to have the cake and eat it too. So they don't want to give up on the sugar, but they want the sweetness. So, I mean, I see aisles of zero-calorie drinks,
sure, yeah.
cakes. Even I saw zero-calorie chocolate on an aisle once. I thought, those two are oxymorons.
Did you
Definitely.
try one of those?
I did, and it actually tasted pretty good because they're using substitutes.
Yeah, probably
So the market
stevia, I
has
guess,
definitely
things like
gotten
that,
bigger with different products, but do you have any stats to back this up?
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the screen to see how the zero market is growing. So in the 2020, the zero-calorie soft drink market had already reached about 101 million USD. And now in just 2 years, the market size has grown more than twice, reaching about 200 million USD. Now, this clearly reflects our generation's choice and keen interest in health and fitness. But as you can see, growing number of selections of food and consumption choices as well.
All right, and now we're going to take a listen from a health expert on how to better detect and prevent diabetes right after this. So we'll connect to you guys with a Skype interview right after this. We're now going to be hearing from a health expert on what type of signs or symptoms we should look for to identify diabetes. It's Dr. Yu Byung-wook, head of the International Clinic in Suncheonyoung University Hospital here in Seoul. Great to have you here, Dr. Yu.
Good morning. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Good morning, Dr. Yu.
All right. So, Dr. Yu, I'd like to ask you the first question. As we mentioned just now, more young people seem to be looking for zero sugar drinks or sugar substitutes because they're thinking about their diet or sometimes even the risk of diabetes. But does that mean it's okay for a pre-diabetic or people generally to have as much zero sugar drinks as they want?
Well, first of all, I'm so impressed. I'm watching the last 10 minutes of you guys conversating over it's like expertise debating about
Right.
diabetes and pre-diabetes and the condition in Korea you are concerned. Yes, I'm so impressed. But let me say, this kind of very sensible issues. Since we have this sweetener, zero sugar something, yes, a couple of years, but recently the increase. There are a lot of debate in not only Korea, also US. In Korea, until 2021, Korean KDCA, they say there are no problem. They mention it, no problem, zero sugar drinks. But it been changed how zero sugar drink may affect badly for the people our general health. Because until now, unfortunately, there are no definite answer about whether zero something or not. Because these drinks contain no calories. That's why we believe it's good. But there are some reasons we have to concern. First, it may increase heart disease. Yes, some research they say, yes, this sweetener, sugar-free something will good for so the diabetes and doesn't affect the sugar, but can be affect issue about heart disease. Second is, it can be developed with kidney disease. Also, we still debate it, but it's some reports is coming. Also, you can be surprised. This zero sugar drink, zero sugar something, may lead to the weight gaining. Surprise. Why? Because this sweetener can be interfering for microbiome, our gut, intestine interaction. So there are certain hormones can be increase your appetite. Finally, this zero sugar stuff may increase your weight. And also, this is still we are debating, may cause poor blood sugar controlling. Recently, we have a report, A1C showed us last 3 months average of your sugar. Yes, can be a little bit increased compared than just to free water. The last one is may concern about the woman who under the menopause condition. Yes, could increase your risk of osteoporosis.
Wow.
This is my little concern. Also, this is all of our medical expert. Until now, we still debate it because Zero Sugar company, they put their medical evidence. Also, our medical expert, we are
Right.
looking for another condition in a couple of years later.
Right.
Yes,
So as you mentioned, Dr. Yu, it's though a lot of people think that zero sugar would be best for diabetes and for your health conditions, it might not be the case because it can heighten other health risks as well. And Xiao, I think you have a question for Dr. Yu as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I found it very interesting. I think stevia and things like that could be a healthier alternative to usual the saccharin and things like that. I think you've been mentioning from back in the days. We'll have to see the conditions. But as I mentioned earlier, it's quite alarming to see more and more people in their 20s and their 30s being diagnosed with pre-diabetes and also type 2 diabetes. So what are some symptoms to look out for, and which symptoms would mean that you should go see a doctor?
Well, I don't want to make the shock to our dear viewers of the Arirang. You know what? Diabetes is silent assassin. No symptom actually from the beginning. Early 20s, 30s, even their sugar is fluctuating and over 100 and they are fasting sugar. But symptom is very mild and non-specific. So we couldn't recognize at all. Only the people who are very serious condition, who is the pancreas is damaged seriously because of the heavy drinkers and the obese, central obese person, they might have thirsty and frequent pee, frequent urinations, and losing weight so fast in a short time. But this is classically they said, but actually early 20s, 30s, there are no definite symptoms. So under the Korean Health Insurance Services, also expect in Korea Peninsula, why not to do the health screening at least once in a year? So simply 8 hours of fasting, we can simply catch your fasting sugar, we can tell. But another way, I already mentioned hemoglobin A1C is very useful too. You don't need to fast. You have a heavy meal last night, but no worry, because hemoglobin A1C shows us last 3 months or 4 months level of average of your sugar. We can tell your pre-diabetes or border of diabetes, or so far so good from the diabetes, or your diabetes.
So yeah, as I think Dr. Yu mentioned, I think testing frequently would be the best way to see if you have diabetes.
And you mentioned that
or
too,
not.
Cheska, right?
Exactly.
And we're going to be mentioning this later with our viewers' comments, but it's such a big issue among millennials and Gen Z in other countries. So it was a great pleasure to be talking to you today, Dr. Yu.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So we're going to be moving on to include our global viewers in our talks. And as Dr. Yu just mentioned, because it's such a global issue, let's see how our viewers are reacting to this growing health crisis. Take a look at the screen. Black Sword 3545 said, I think sugar consumption is a serious problem in South Korea. It's a big part of the tourism and the cultural enjoyment food element. All of it looks so good, tastes so good, but it ain't good for me and it's not healthy to consume so much. Radicorn said, clearly I had sweet tooth when I was a kid because now I can eat sweet things, but my tolerance is too low. Diabetes and weight problems are a health issue in all ages. We need to take care of our body's health. And Mark said, I have developed a sweet tooth as I've gotten older. For Korea, it will be interesting to see how much access to so much Western food, including sweets, will affect Korean kids. Now, our viewers also mentioned that they are aware of diabetes and the growing sweet tooth among the younger generation. But before we wrap up our discussion, I would like to ask for you guys to share a few tips on or facts on how to have a healthier diet and prevent developing diabetes in general.
Yeah, I mean, as we were mentioning before, in Korea as well, according to Statistics Korea, diabetes, complications from diabetes is the 6th most common cause of death in South Korea as well. So I think there is an increase of being aware and things like that. One thing I could mention is the low glycemic index diet. You get your superfoods these days, things like whole grains, legumes, eating fruits and vegetables, and also keeping a regular exercise and things like that would be a good idea.
Definitely. And you, Cheska?
Actually, I would like to suggest something slightly similar but different from what Sean said. So we know about healthy lifestyle, workout, staying fit, but I would actually say that extreme dieting and this obsession with trying to stay too lean, going from starvation to binging, could actually cause a spike or disrupt the hormone levels, making your body more keen to becoming a diabetic. So I would actually think that maybe moderation and enjoying the delicacies of modicum probably adds more sweetness to our lives.
All right, moderation is key.
As we always say.
As we always say, moderation is key. And we'll be here every day from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you topics that young people are talking about. Special thanks to Kim Xiao
My pleasure, Ian.
and Cheska Dainhong.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.